All right, so for the next 10, 15 minutes or so, we're all going to be neuroscientists in this room, okay? And you guys are in what, the fourth and sixth grade? Fourth, fifth, and sixth? So typically to be a neuroscientist, guess what grade you have to be in? 18th grade. 18th and 19th is like basic when you actually get the tools to really understand how the brain works. And that doesn't seem very fair, does it? No, because one of the things is that you would argue, you would say, hey, 20% of the world, that's 1 out of 5 people will have a neurological disorder. How many cures do we have for neurological diseases, do you think? 10? Lower. 0. We have no cures for these. So, why aren't we teaching people a little bit more about how the brain works, And it's not like in other fields. For example, if you wanted to study astronomy, do you have to go get a PhD in astronomy to be able to understand how the planets work? No. You can go buy a cheap telescope. You can sit up in your backyard. You're already starting to get interested in becoming maybe an astronomer or just interested in science. But there's nothing like that in the biological sciences yet. And so what we did is we created a tool. It was like the telescope but for the brain. It's like a really cheap little box that allows you to record living brain signals. We don't use fancy equipment. You can use your own, phones or tablets and actually see the signals on your devices. So we're going to do a demo today. But before we do that, I just want to talk a little bit about the brain. I know you guys are probably pretty advanced here at Spence, but this is just a review. This is the brain. You got 100 billion cells in your brain. Those cells are called neurons, and they look like this. And these have a large body, which have an arm that reaches out. That's called an axon. It's down this axon that information gets passed in the form of electricity. And that looks like this. It's a spike, and we call it a spike as electrophysiologists because this is the unit of currency. It looks like a railroad spike, but this is how every information, like your favorite baseball player, everything is encoded with these little electrical pulses, and we're going to see that today and do an experiment. But we're not going to use one of your teachers or one of you. We're actually going to use one of our friends here, the cockroaches, because cockroaches have very similar neurons as we do. I mean, it'd be really hard if I was a neuroscientist looking at 2 slices to tell which one was a human, which one's a cockroach. But, so what we're going to do now is I'm going to do a surgery. And those who are in the classes with me will be doing surgeries as well. You can switch to the camera now. All right. So we need to go grab one of our specimens. So here we got one right here. So this is a South American cockroach. These are Latinos. So what we're gonna do first, I don't know if you guys have ever. I love this. I don't know if you guys have ever gotten a teeth drilled on when you went to a dentist, but if you're like me, I don't like to be awake when I'm getting surgery or getting work done. So we're going to anesthetize this guy. I'm going to put him in a glass of ice water, and we're going to see. You guys saw him moving just a second ago. So what's happening when we put this cockroach in ice water? What do you guys think is happening? So we are warm-blooded. They're cold-blooded. So he's becoming the same temperature as the water. And what happens when things get colder? Things freeze, but what it's freezing is actually slowing down, right? And so what happens when this thing slows down is that the ions that make that neuron fire stop moving, and then therefore it no longer fires action potentials. If it can't fire action potentials, it can't move, and it also can't feel anything, right? So we've anesthetized this cockroach. So I'm going to take this guy back out again. So I've noticed, all right, we're going to let him cook a little bit more. All right, so we're going to take this guy back out again. And now the first thing we're going to do is we're going to remove one of his legs. And now remember, he can't feel this. And one of the cool things about cockroaches is that their legs can grow back. So that, insects have it totally over us. So I'm just going to go back to the slides really quick. I want to talk about what we're doing. So we've anesthetized the cockroach. You guys with me? Do I have your attention? All right, so I want you, so if you looked really, really closely inside that leg of the cockroach, there's all these beautiful hairs out there. Each hair has a neuron in it, and that neuron is sending information back to the brain, the central nervous system, about information about like touches and vibrations and stuff like that. And so even though we cut the leg off, it's going to still be alive because insects can breathe through their skin. It's kind of cool. All right, so our next prep of the experiment is we're going to put some pins that are made out of metal into the leg, and that's going to be able to amplify the electricity. It's going to come off the leg from these little tiny neurons sending those spikes into our invention, which will create almost like a telescope, makes it bigger, the voltages that are inside the leg, and we should be able to listen, as electrophysiologists do, to how the brain works. All right, so let's go back to the camera. And I'm going to put here, can you guys see that? I'm going to put the cockroach pins in there. So this is in a spot where I don't think there's neurons. I'm going to put a spot where I do think there are neurons, and this thing subtracts the two from each other and allows you to be able to listen to what the brain sounds like. So I'm going to turn this thing on. We're going to listen. Let's move this camera back just a little bit. I want everyone to just listen right now. And what you're listening to is what the brain sounds like. I don't know if you guys can hear that. Is it on the mic? All right, well, I'll put my mic down there. So people say that sounds like raindrops, or some of that, but that's actually what your brain is doing right now. And so what we can do, it's not just a sound. Remember I said these things are spikes. So what we can do is we're going to take a look at the iPad screen, and now we're looking at what one action potential looks like as it's sending a message from one neuron all the way over to another neuron, and we can just capture that and in real time be able to see that. So now we're going to do an experiment. I'm going to go back here, and I'm going to touch the leg, and we'll see if we can drive a response. So I'm going to turn this up a little bit. You guys hear that? So what we're actually doing is when I touch that leg, that neuron is opening up a little bit, and it creates a little voltage which causes a spike, which allows us to feel everything that we do in the universe, see everything in the universe, all comes from spikes. Okay, so I just want to talk about a couple more quick things. Let's get past that one. So, actually, just get past these ones. I'm going to do one more experiment here, and this is an experiment that was done first by Galvani, if I can get the slides really quick. Back in the early part of I think it's the 17th century, where he was working with frog legs. And what he was noticing was that when you put a voltage on a frog leg, it would move. And so it was very interesting. And then he did an interesting experiment where he's like, I wonder if the lightning that's out there in the universe is the same as the electricity that's inside the body. And so he did this experiment where he put up a lightning rod and he sent half of it to go into the frog legs, and the other half he stored it so you can measure the voltage, and you can actually measure and see what happens and observe the cockroach or the frog legs. So we're going to do that same experiment today. We have an invention here, which is just an iPod cable that we cut in half and put a couple hooks on. And so what we're going to do is we're going to put these hooks onto the cockroach leg. We get the camera back. And I don't know if you guys know how iPods work, but what happens is when you're sending that signal down to your iPod, what's actually happening is it's sending a little current, which makes a magnet inside your earbuds vibrate, which causes music to come through, and then allows you to actually hear the music as it hits a cone and vibrates. So I'm going to open up my music player. I'm going to place it on here, and we're going to see if I play the electrical charges from an iPod, what happens to this cockroach leg. Are you guys ready? And it's down here. Oh my gosh, it works! It works! Science! All right. All right, so there we go. We have one more experiment. We don't have much time. So those who are in the classes will be able to do this as well. And we can figure out because there are certain musics that the cockroach legs don't like. If I get back to the slides really quick. There are certain frequencies that if you go down to like boring opera music, cockroach legs won't dance to that because it's a certain frequency. It's the same frequency at which we stimulate, for example, deep brain stimulation and other things. I want to just do one more video here. This is also done in Roger Hanlon's lab at Woods Hole. That's the squid. And we can do the same thing, playing music into a squid. And remember what that octopus looked like when it escaped? So now we're going to see what happens when we play music.
Don't you know I'm loco?
Whoa. So what am I doing? So this is a microscope that we've looked in at a piece of skin, and we've sucked in part of the nerve, and we're just playing the electrical current through there. And it allows the current to sort of cause these muscles inside the chromatophores to open, and then you get to see this beautiful effect. What happens inside the brain of the squid is that it does this and it allows it to change its colors almost instantaneously. All right. So let's do one last experiment here. I'd like to volunteer. Is Alexandra here? Do you have your pads on? All right. So one question you might have, all right, that's all cool with cockroaches, but what about me? What about us, all right, as humans? So let's do another experiment here. So Alexandra, you put on some pads here, and these are just little metal clips on her body that have a little bit of gel, so it's going to be able to conduct electricity. And I'm going to place a couple of electrodes. I'm not going to cut your leg off, all right? I don't think your mom would allow that. Yeah, we do cam view. All right, and I'll put this down there. Okay, so now I'm going to turn on the spiker box. And turn this one off. And turn this one on. You guys ready for this? All right, we'll see if this one works. So, when you're ready, I want you to squeeze as hard as you can. You guys hear this? And relax. And squeeze. Oh, yeah, that's beautiful. Can you see that on the screen as well? Let's look at your muscles on the screen. So what is happening right here is the same thing. So we have neurons inside of our motor cortex that project down into our spinal cord, which synapses to another neuron, which goes directly to the muscle. And when that fires, it causes a chain reaction of calcium that goes in. It causes a voltage that allows actin to walk up myelin. And this is what you're looking at here, when she squeezes her hand. All right, so give a round of applause for Alexandra. Thank you so much. All right, perfect. Perfect. Thank you. All right, so I have a couple of seconds left. I just want to talk about some of our new projects that we're working on. You can go back to the screen. This is what we call the Roboroach. It's the world's first commercially available cyborg in the history of mankind, and it was a cockroach. And so it's a backpack that we stick onto the back of the cockroach, all right? And we asked people, hey, do you guys want this? And we put it on Kickstarter. People said, yeah, maybe. Yeah, so we barely got our goal, which is cool. So then, how does it work? So a cockroach walks down the hall, and then if it feels something on its left-hand side, it wants to turn and walk away from that, right? If it's walking here and it feels something on the right-hand side, it wants to turn and walk the other way. So what is it that's it's feeling? It's neurons inside there, right? So if we look at the neurons inside the antenna, that's what's touching the wall. What would happen if we made that neuron fire without actually touching the wall? We could stick a little wire inside the antenna and put a little pulse of current, just like you saw the cockroach leg moving, and just like you saw in Alexandra's arm, that same current in there, which creates a perception that something's there. So this is what we've done. So this is what we call the Roboroach. You pair it with your cell phone over Bluetooth, and so you see we're connecting, and now it makes a connection. I love that. He just says like he's an actor. And so when you brush it, it thinks it's feeling something, and so it wants to turn in the opposite direction. You can see when I swipe to the left, he moves to the left, right? And so now I'm chasing after one. And so you can see as we're walking down the street, now you can take your cockroach out for a walk. Who doesn't want to do that? It's like we now have the technology to do that, right? All right, so that's cool. So anyway, this is the like I said, the world's first cyborg that you could buy and have for your own good. All right, anyway. All right, so the experiments you saw today are just one of dozens of experiments that students like you have come up with and told us what they wanted, and we work with you and we create your experiments for everybody to share from. So if you guys like this type of stuff, or you're going to be doing that in our workshops today, the goal is to kind of get you interested a little bit in neuroscience, and maybe you guys will be the next neuroscientists that are out there curing these diseases. So thank you very much. Thank you.